environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. An acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to the live broadcast of Time for Hemp all around the world on AmericanFreedomRadio.com and on TimeForHemp.com. And I would encourage you to share us with your friends and know that if you cannot tune in during the live broadcast, you can check us out at TimeForHemp.com, and we autoplay the current broadcast anytime you load on to the site. And of course, we've got a great archive where you can find all of our past shows. It is Wednesday, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition Day, Leap Day. And every Wednesday we like to put a spotlight on the hardworking people who are making LEAP such a remarkable organization. And the joint host, remember, anytime you hear the word joint on the big broadcast, nearly 2 million people all around the world hit their pipes, their bongs, their vaporizers, and take time for hemp. My joint host today is Peter Criss. Peter, thank you for taking time for hemp.
Casper, thanks for having me back again and giving LEAP an opportunity to talk to your audience. And I want to thank you again for last Friday.
That was a great show, wasn't it?
I think we put together a pretty good 2 hours, and I want to recommend people go to the website and take a listen to it, because it's one of the things I mentioned when we were doing the show. Everybody that was talking on that show about why we have to end prohibition are all people who have put people in prison for the drug war. So we're not talking about it because of some theoretical position. We've all done the job, and we know it was the part of our job that we should have never been doing.
And you guys really know from both sides of the fence, like you said.
Yes, exactly. And it's and learning. We got a good guest today too, Jim Gierach. He's a former prosecutor from the Chicago area, still lives in Chicago. Basically, I should announce him as Jim Gierach, a board member of LEAP, who lives in the war zone. Jim, you with us?
I am there. Peter, good to be with you. Casper, good to be with you.
Thank you. And, of course, not only did Peter mention you are a member of LEAP, but from my point of view, you are also part of the Time for Hemp family. It's been a while since we've had you on. Good to have you back. It's my understanding that Illinois has finally caught up with the mainstream and joined the new century by making medical marijuana available to citizens. Am I correct?
That's correct. We're the 20th state to approve medical marijuana. Illinois was a little bit slow in getting there, but not as slow as Wisconsin and Iowa and Ohio. But Michigan and Illinois here in the Midwest now have medical marijuana.
You know what would be a real benefit, though? I don't know. I mean, the elections are over, and I can't see how it'd be possible. But can you imagine if you had like a senator or a governor from your state who ended up being the president of the United States and might be able to recognize the value of medical marijuana?
Well, I don't see that in the future at the moment. Light here.
Just say it. Okay, Peter, go ahead.
Just the main thing I really want to talk about, the medical marijuana is a big step, but the violence in Chicago has really kicked up, I understand.
Oh, well, I mean, that's a subject really dear to my heart. The reason I became involved in trying to change drug policy, because the violence in Chicago was just epidemic back in the early 90s, actually the end of about 1989, really started getting bad. We had 12 kids killed in one weekend. And even though things have gotten somewhat better, we're down to 500 and some murders a year instead of, we were at one point at 900 and some murders a year back when I was prosecuting in the early 70s. But the violence is still just unbelievable. This past weekend, I believe it was 6 people killed and 30-some shot.
Well,
every weekend's another horrible
I don't mean to interrupt here, but it's my understanding that Chicago's a gun-free zone. That there's no weapons there, so it should be just safe.
Sure, Chicago is the home of Prohibition, the home of Al Capone, and the home of the violence that comes with it. So life is really just unlivable. We've traded safe streets for drug prohibition. We've traded zero tolerance for common sense, and as a consequence, we have more drugs, uncontrolled and unregulated. The kids fighting over it. We've torn down the project buildings here in Chicago because the buildings were in such poor shape, but the drug business used to be organized by project building, so that one gang would control one building and another gang a different building. And when they tore down this high-rise housing and they dispersed these gang members into low-rise housing throughout the city, what they did was they disrupted the drug outlets and distribution system, so that on the same street you would have gang members from different gangs, and the violence, of course, is in part because they're trying to establish who's in control. And as Peter says, well, once the violence calms down, we'll know that somebody's in charge again for a while.
Yeah, that's the old routine I do about the television show in the morning with the big table filled with drugs and money, and the young ADA stand out talking about the 2-year investigation. And we all know how we figure out if we got the kingpins. We wait until the sentences come out. And after the sentences come out, if the violence increases, then we know we got the kingpins because they're fighting over who's taking over. I just wonder if anybody's done any crunching of numbers or any statistics percentage-wise on homicide rate in Chicago between 1920 and 1933 and the current homicide rate in Chicago. I just wonder if there's any parallels there.
Well, I'm sure there's the parallel is that the violence goes up when you prohibit things that people want. But statistically, I haven't looked to try to correlate the two. But
yeah, I know, because what's at the root of this thing. And for the audience, this is not drug-related violence. This is drug policy-related violence, drug prohibition-related violence. These people are running around the streets of Chicago shooting each other because they're high on drugs. They're fighting over an illegal marketplace, which we have given them by choosing a policy of prohibition rather than a regulated and controlled marketplace.
Yeah, well, it's definitely about the kids shooting one another, fighting over the violence, over the drugs, and who's going to control it. And of course, if you shoot one of my buddies, now it's personal, so now I have to retaliate. And sometimes they don't realize the retaliation. The media doesn't realize the retaliation is because it's a friend thing at this point, but the origin of it was because of a drug business deal that went bad.
Absolutely. How is anybody listening there in Chicago?
I don't think so. The superintendent of police is from New York and a little bit regressed. He thinks by putting cops on the dots and by studying social networking to see what gang members know what other gang members, that's going to make a difference in the crime. And of course, he was holding a press conference here at one point this summer talking about how this program is working and stuff, and within a block, shooting erupts. It's embarrassing to even watch.
While he was talking?
While he was talking. Why? Cars and stuff are around within a block of where it's happening, shooting erupts.
I hope for his sake it didn't follow when he said the line, "We got a handle on this."
Okay, now, am I to believe that legalizing medical marijuana is going to help put a dent in the crime problem, or are we just going to have to wait till it becomes a recreational legal element as well in the state?
Well, the fact that we have medical marijuana in Illinois is not going to change the economics of prohibition, because the vast number of users, I would say, don't need medical marijuana. They simply want marijuana. And so that black market is still going to be present. Plus, they've made the law in Illinois for medical marijuana the strictest, I think, of any of the 20 states in the country that have approved medical marijuana, so that it's limited to 2.5 ounces. I think twice a month. You can't grow your own. They're talking about 60 dispensaries and 20 grows, or growing facilities. I just saw an article in the last day or two that said that because of the delay in putting regulations in place, even though the law is supposed to take effect January 1st, 2014, that it'll take a full year to put in place the regulations. So now you're into 2015. Plus, the law that they passed was only going to be good for a 4-year experimental period. So one quarter of the time is going to be used up just trying to put in place the rules that you have to live by. And of course, there's going to be some startup time for someone who's trying to go into the business. So much of the 4-year period will be dallied away as we try to put in place this reform.
Well, you both know my feeling about the medical marijuana issue, and I look at it as a marginal step. And the good thing about it is it'll change our discussion about marijuana and start talking about it as a legitimate drug that has a purpose. So that's the good thing about it. The bad thing about it is it doesn't address, as you very clearly said, Jim, it doesn't address the fundamental problem of prohibition that's causing all of our problems.
Sure. The problem remains prohibition, and until we get rid of that, but every time some referendum passes or some laws changed that makes that throws a stone at the war on drugs, it's a helpful step in the correct direction. The ball is rolling. It will soon be over, this crazy war on drugs for marijuana and other drugs, because the people recognize that it doesn't work. That's the reason these referendums are passing. That's the reason that the poll results show that public opinion is swinging. It's the reason. Here's the good news today. I don't know. I saw this article getting ready for an interview with a newspaper, but August 24th, despite federal ban, Vermont legalizes hemp effective immediately. Did you hear about that?
No.
Now, this is an article that I just got off the internet today. A grow house with hemp plant cultivation, Vermont, has become the most recent state to take a stand against the federal government and nullify the federal ban on hemp cultivation. While much of the country has focused on the issue of whether to legalize marijuana for medical and recreational use, lawmakers in some states, such as Vermont, have pushed for the nullification of federal law on marijuana cannabis cousin, hemp. So,
it's funny. My lovely wife just got back from a week with a girlfriend of hers and went up to Canada, and they were on the north edge of Lake Erie for a while. And when they were driving through the area up there, they drove by a lot of tobacco fields. And when they came home and they were talking about the tobacco fields, I says, in 10 years, you go back up there, it'll all be hemp fields.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the biggest absurdity of this whole drug war. When we made alcohol illegal, we didn't burn all the cornfields. And the classic example of the absurdity of the hemp prohibition is the fact that the federal government in 1942 came out with that wonderful movie, Hemp for Victory, to get our farmers to start growing hemp again because they needed ropes for the boats. And then at the end of the war, we went around and we burned all the hemp fields again. That shows it's one of the key examples I use of the absurdity of this policy.
And let me just interject here that a gentleman that I used to work for by the name of Jack Hare is the individual who unearthed that particular piece of history, Hemp for Victory. Go ahead.
And not the only thing that Jack Hare made visible to everybody else. There was a lot of things we can thank him for.
Exactly.
This is the show where I could put the question and get a good answer here. But as I read this article about Vermont, it says 9 states thus far have lifted a ban on hemp, and 20 states introduced legislation during the 2013 session to allow hemp cultivation so farmers and other businesses can take advantage of the hemp market. Since hemp has useful many useful, thousands of useful purposes, including paper, clothing, construction materials, automobile parts, food, and could be even used as a biofuel.
Yep.
Is that correct? 9 states thus far have lifted the ban on hemp?
That is correct. And what they are waiting on is for Uncle Sam to get off their hands and give them permission to grow. Even though they have passed that for industrial purposes, unlike the medical marijuana, which has patient demands now. Industrial hemp has no demands now and do stand in direct competition with petrochemical companies and other industries. And so there are lobbyists who encourage the DEA not to give these states the final approval to grow industrial hemp. And with that said, we are coming up on a commercial here in just a minute. I want to remind people that you can find us in iTunes. You can find all 4 of our podcasts. They are free to download, and you can also find us on Tumblr and on SoundCloud if you want to listen to us on your phone and enjoy us there. Please share us with your friends, and of course, go to timeforhemp.com and share us with your friends, and you can always stay current with what's going on with our news tracker that's also available for your cell phones. Well, like I said, we are going to take a commercial break and pay our bills, and then we're going to listen to a song about how fantastic marijuana is, and then we're going to come back and pick up where we left off. It would be great if you let our sponsors know that you heard about them here on the big broadcast. Also, a big shout out to American Freedom Radio for all the hard work they are doing in lifting the voice of freedom and the marijuana movement. And if you get a chance, go to their website, hit the donate button, and I'm sure you'll also enjoy many of their programs found there. Well, anyway, pack a bowl and let everybody know how important it is to take time for hemp. Oh, I think I went a little bit early, so that's cool. And don't forget to go to leap.cc and let them know that you could like to have a speaker come from their website to your neck of the woods, and you heard about them here on Time for Hemp.
It's time for hemp prohibition to end. The cannabis legalization movement has long waited to have congressional or Senate hearings to present the failure of drug prohibition, medical benefits of cannabis, and more. Time for Hemp is tired of waiting for the cannabis movement to get such an invitation and has organized this 5 2-hour conference series special. Time for Hemp will be hosting live specials to produce a global cannabis summit with some of the most brilliant minds and amazing leaders of the industrial hemp and medical cannabis movement. This presentation will be broadcasted live on American Freedom Radio, online, AM/FM stations across America, and on Roku, and will be archived at American Freedom Radio and on iTunes. During each commercial-free broadcast, moderators will conduct discussions with 6 expert panelists brought together from all corners of the earth to present the most current research and statistics concerning this trillion-dollar industry. Tune in live starting each Friday this August at 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This special presentation is being hosted by Casper Leitch on AmericanFreedomRadio.com.
On October 10th of this year, our country made its 20 millionth marijuana arrest. 20 million sounds like a big number, but you may not realize how big. 20 million marijuana arrests is the equivalent of arresting 2/3 of everyone living in the state of California, or the entire state of Texas. Arresting 20 million marijuana smokers is like arresting every single person in North Dakota, and South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Delaware, West Virginia, Nebraska, Alaska, Idaho, New Mexico, New Hampshire, Vermont, Utah, Rhode Island, Kansas, Maine, and Washington, D.C. Any way you cut it, it just doesn't seem like America anymore. A nation divided against itself cannot stand. Help us come together to put an end to marijuana prohibition and the astronomical arrest rate. Visit normal.org for more information.
Education and information. See what all the buzz is all about. It's time for hemp. It's time for hemp.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
I'm not a doctor, but I've seen one on TV. And no one is immune from everyday aches and pains. But what about the times you've caused the pain yourself? You've hit your thumb with a hammer. You've stepped on a rake. You've slammed your head in the car door. Again. Now, for the extra pain caused by doing something incredibly stupid, there's new Imbecile. Only Imbecile provides fast relief from the special pain of being a mindless clod. Imbecile! Because it hurts to be a jerk. Also try Imbecile Jr.
President George Bush, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas.
Many famous Americans, including prominent conservatives, have used
William F.
marijuana. None were arrested, and all have lived successful lives.
President Bill Clinton. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Is it fair to arrest
Mayor
750,000 people
Governor
a year
George Pataki.
for doing what presidents and a Supreme Court justice have done?
Visit the Marijuana Policy Project Foundation, www.joinmpp.org, or call toll-free 1-877-JOIN-MPP.
You're listening to the future of talk. American Freedom Radio. This is American Freedom Radio.
Your life, as it has been, is over.
Don't miss the Middle Chamber with Freighter X on AFR. Listen to the Paradigm Shift, Saturday night, 6 p.m. Central.
For the best Pix band, first schizophrenia and smoke marijuana.
When I was young, my mother said to me, "Hey, Luke, you know, you are very young. I say, "Hey, mommy, I know I'm very young because you are my mommy and I am your son." Now I'm grown and I make what I want. I make love all the night and I sing all the day. Girls said to me, "Oh, Luke, so can you be so cool?" I smoke marijuana every day. I smoke marijuana every day. And I smoke marijuana every day. It's good for cholera. C'est bon pour ce que tu as. And I smoke marijuana every day. Yesterday I went to the doctor and he said to me,
"You've got the cholera."
What? The cholera?
Yes.
The fucking cholera? Oh, Luke, oh no!
Yes, you've got the cholera.
Today in Marseille I went in another doctor and I said, "Hey doctor, I've got the cholera." He said, "Don't worry, Gary Grower, I've got the solution. Smoke marijuana." And I smoke marijuana every day. And I smoke marijuana every day. It's good for cholera. C'est bon pour ce que tu as. And I smoke marijuana every day.
I have a dream. Yes, I saw God. Oh my God! And he said to me, Lux, you have to tell to the world that grass is good for all the problem. Jesus Christ! All good people smoke marijuana. You know, Buddha, Bob l'éponge, Rintintin, Titanic Captain smoke marijuana. Oh my God!
And I smoke marijuana every day.
Hallelujah!
And I smoke marijuana every day. It's good for cholera, c'est bon pour ce que tu as. And I smoke marijuana every day. And I smoke marijuana every day. And I smoke marijuana every day. It's good for cholera, c'est bon pour ce que tu as. And I smoke marijuana every day.
Yeah, baby, I do. I smoke marijuana every day, but I'm a medical marijuana card holder here in the state of Oregon, in the city of Portland, and I can do that legally. I'm allowed to have 22 big, healthy, huge plants on my property growing. And then when you come inside from looking at my gorgeous plants, we can sit and put our fingers through 22 ounces of marijuana and go, oh my God, I can't believe other states can't do this, but we can. So if you're living in a state where you can't do that, you need to get out, get active, and change the law. On the program today, my joint host, Peter, Chris, and I are having a joint conversation with one of our joint friends. And Peter, I'm going to hit this joint while you continue our joint conversation and we get more jointly educated.
Okay, just try to remember and don't forget where we're
at. What?
Exactly.
Okay.
James, we're going to be doing a little bit more work up in the Chicago area soon.
Well, I hope so. I think the LEAP board, I think, is of a mind to try and help out with the trouble in Chicago. The violence is so bad, and the newspapers and the religious leaders and the law enforcement leaders here have been so slow on the draw to inaugurate reform that it's time for LEAP to help. I attended a violence summit that was called by the Congressional Black Caucus, and we had Maxine Waters from California come in, along with Bobby Rush, who's a former Black Panther but longtime congressman from Chicago, Danny Davis, another African American congressman, and a fourth one. Who were here, and at the summit to stop the violence in Chicago, and they called it a national urban violence crisis. I attended. Reverend Jesse Jackson was one of the speakers on stage, along with these 4 or 5 Congress persons, and not a single one of them asked that there were calls for drug policy reform of any kind in addressing the violence. And yet the superintendent of police, Gary McCarthy, here in Chicago, says that 80% of the homicides are caused by kids fighting over control of the drug business. So how can you have the superintendent of police who tells you that 80% of the homicides are coming from kids fighting over prohibited drugs and who's going to control the sale, and then have a summit, a national summit, and not have one of these leaders on the stage mention drug policy, or the need for a change in drug policy, or the need to end the war on drugs, which is causing the violence. It's so foolhardy that it's really hard to sit there and listen.
It's not a new...
LEAP, I think, is interested in jumping in and trying to help, because Chicago's the worst. Chicago has more gang members. They used to say we had over 100,000 gang members, and I've read stories recently that talk over 200,000 members in Chicago. So,
it's interesting. This is not unusual in other movements. I like to use the example of when in the mid-'60s, when Martin Luther King came out against the Vietnam War, there were a lot of people in the civil rights movement who said, that isn't our issue. We shouldn't be talking about that. And I think Martin Luther King's response was something along the lines of, if you don't understand that that is our issue too, then you don't understand our issue. And I think that that's the same thing now with the drug war situation. They're trying to avoid this because they have this myth that's been created from the prohibitionists that if you support the legalization of drugs, you're somehow pro-drug or you're for the drugs or something like that. And that has nothing to do with our position or even the rest of the legalizers' positions. This is not being pro-drug. This is being pro-good policy.
Sure. I have never used an illicit substance. I drank alcohol before I was old enough to do so, according to the law. But I am so enthused about this movement for drug policy reform. It isn't because I'm in favor of drug use. It's because I am so opposed to telling people, no, you can't do something that they want to do with their own body, whether it's alcohol or some other substance. And as a consequence of that intolerance, that zero tolerance, which we put in place and made a national policy and a national goal, we end up fomenting all of these crises of violence and crime and prisons and destruction of constitutional rights and the locking up and throwing the key away, and the inability to pay our bills, and the failure to have confidence in people and their ability to exercise self-discipline. It's just made things so much worse that I'm active and I'm going to stay active.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we are the organization. You have put people in prison for drugs as a prosecutor. I've done it as a police officer. All the rest of us in law enforcement against prohibition have done the same thing. We are not people that haven't fought this war honorably and are now against. That's who we are, as people that fought this war honorably and are now against it. We are not some naive group of people from the outside that thinks that it's somehow pro-drug or whatever. The drugs are, in fact, I like to say to people that these drugs, these illegal drugs, are so dangerous that they must be regulated and controlled. And our current policy is total deregulation and decontrol of that marketplace.
Well, to be honest, I'm surprised they really haven't gone after sugar.
Is that we've delegated that control to the street gangs and the drug cartels.
Exactly.
And not only that, but law enforcement, by their enforcement of this war on drugs, basically is assisting and helping the cartels and the street gangs to make certain that those are the only outlets through which drugs can be sold. So we seize a ton of drugs, and then law enforcement destroys it, which is what the cartels and the street gangs would want us to do. As long as they've lost control of the drugs, they don't want the civilized society putting these drugs into circulation in some controlled and regulated and labeled manner so that drug use would be safer. They would want us to destroy the drugs. And that's exactly what we do for them, helping protect their monopolistic control over the drug industry.
Absolutely. In fact, I have people say to me, who's your biggest opposition at LEAP? And I always start out by saying the drug cartels. They're the first ones that don't want us to be successful because we'll take that whole marketplace away from them. I don't hear anybody from Budweiser or Labatt's calling for a return to alcohol prohibition.
Well, and now you're not kidding here. I lived in Tucson, Arizona for a while, and it really is agitating to me. I was working at a convenient market for like $7.25 an hour, just barely making ends meet. As a legal citizen in this country, my next door neighbor didn't even have a green card, doesn't even know how to speak English, and pulled out of his pocket a wad of $100 bills the size of Mike Tyson's fist. And all of it was illegal money, and all of it was his profit, and I'm busting my hump for 40 hours a week, just barely making ends meet. This clown's making a sound, not even a legal citizen in my country. He's making an afternoon sound. He's got more money than I've made in 6 months.
And he ain't paying any taxes on it either.
Nope, and he's laughing at me busting my hump while he's doing it.
Yep, exactly. Let's get this out of their hands, turn it over to a regulated control marketplace, deal with the drug problem as a healthcare and an educational issue that everybody says it is. You know, it's often, I saw the drug czar was giving a speech the other day or a couple months ago, and he made the statement that we understand that this drug problem is fundamentally a healthcare and educational problem. And I was waiting for just one reporter to ask the question that I thought was screaming to be asked, and that is, what other healthcare and educational problem should we use the criminal justice system as the primary focus to deal with it? And I can't think of any. You know, we used to arrest insane people before we realized it was an illness. And we're doing the same thing now with drug addicts. We never did this. In fact, somebody pointed out to me just recently that when we talk about decriminalization as if that's a step in the right direction, alcohol prohibition was decriminalization. We didn't arrest the users. We just arrest the manufacturers and the sellers. So that's what decriminalization is today for drugs, not arresting the users. That's what alcohol prohibition was, and it didn't make it work any better. So decriminalization is not the answer. The only answer is legalization.
Well, and the other thing that people need to realize is that if they're interested in controlling and regulating drugs, this system of prohibition certainly isn't accomplishing its purpose. I was being interviewed by a reporter from a Wisconsin newspaper here earlier this morning, and in preparation for that, I looked to see what was happening in Michigan. But 2 days ago, in the Menominee Indian Reservation in Wisconsin, they had a seizure of 900 marijuana plants, which they value at $1.3 million. And I knew that marijuana in Wisconsin is a significant problem, as it is everywhere, at least if you deem the growing of it problematical. And in one of the articles, they talked about the forest preserve districts in Wisconsin being inundated with drugs, so that there's actually warnings being sent out. That not that there's a danger of a forest fire or that there's a danger of a black bear or a snake. That the danger is that they've got armed cartel members that are at risk because they're growing these industrial scale marijuana grows in national forests. And the article talks about from 2008 to 2012, law enforcement officials eradicated 67,827 marijuana plants in this one national forest, Chickamauga. Hold on.
I need to jump in here because it is commercial break time, so we can pay our bills. Remind people, if you want to advertise on Time for Hemp, you can do so. Go to timeforhemp.com and find it. We'll be right back at this commercial break here on Time for Hemp.
Serious Seeds is your source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic, Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Excuse me for a moment while I vent about the mind-boggling stupidity of the autocratic, bureaucratic, right-wing, Neanderthal numbskulls who keep pushing an insane, inane, and inhumane holy war against marijuana, which is, after all, a weed. The most embarrassing thing for these holy warriors is that the weed is winning. They've been at this war since 1937, spending billions and billions of our tax dollars, militarizing our borders, and stomping on our Bill of Rights. They've used phone taps, garbage searches, jackbooted raids, and draconian prison terms to do what? To nab peaceful, mellow tokers who aren't bothering anyone, that's what. Despite 60 years of spending our money, they failed. 85% of Americans say marijuana is easy to obtain today. A third of our population says they've tried it. Nearly 15 million people partake of it at least monthly, and more high school students now smoke marijuana than cigarettes. Meanwhile, the holy warriors have become more fanatical and thuggish. A marijuana arrest is made every 41 seconds in America, 9 out of 10 of them for mere possession. In 2004, 772,000 Americans were arrested on marijuana charges, more than for all violent crimes combined. And 40,000 Americans are in prison today for this victimless crime, more than the entire prison populations of 8 European countries. Even sicker, the sanctimonious weed warriors have made it a crime for thousands of seriously sick people to get the medical benefits of using small amounts of doctor-prescribed marijuana. Weirdly, our doctors can prescribe cocaine for patients, but not marijuana. This is Jim Hightower saying, for information and action to stop this absurd war, call the Marijuana Policy Project, 202-462-5747.
Time for Hemp is an educational tool that can be found in iTunes, on Spreaker, and of course at timeforhemp.com.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
Trust. This is American Freedom Radio. Freedom, American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Your daily dose of conspiracy and comedy. It's the Vinny Eastwood Show. In a world so full of madness and chaos, don't lose your sense of humour or you'll go friggin' nuts. Weekdays 5 till 7 Central on American Freedom Radio.
Well, now, chocolate cake makes my poor stomach ache, and all those pills are too much for me to take. Don't like cocaine, cause it makes me all uptight. The coffee and reefer makes me feel alright.
Yeah, baby, coffee and reefer does make me feel alright. That's why I roll out of the rack. First thing I do is pack myself a big old gnarly bowl.
Things like the coffee and reefer makes you feel alright.
Hello. And that's what makes me feel alright. And I get busy in front of my computer trying to fight back and ending this horrific prohibition. On the program today, we are apparently passing it around. Apparently we are having a conversation about the need to end prohibition. And my joint host today, Peter, Chris, and I are having a great joint conversation with our joint guest, Jim Gierach. Did I get your last name right, Jim Gierach?
Isn't it hard? I should get an easier last name, Gierach.
All right.
Jim, like in a car, like the end of Antioch, Gierach.
As far as maybe you're mispronouncing it.
Yeah, maybe I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I sometimes have people mispronounce my name too.
Casper and Peter. Public policy has put large-scale marijuana cultivation in 68 national forests in the United States in 20 states.
Yep. Well, I guess that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, but what's the name of the public policy that's managed to do that?
Yeah. What is that?
Drugs, right?
Yep, exactly. You know, it's interesting. We keep hearing our drug warriors commenting on the fact that every year they're seizing more drugs, and this is somehow supposed to be an example of success. Mm-hmm. And that, I often tell people, that's like if I was chief of police in your police department, and I said, last year we had, or 4 years ago, we had 5 homicides, and the next year we had 10, and the next year we were at 15, and if everything goes well, we'll have 20 this year. I'm doing a wonderful job.
Yes. We need to hire more policemen.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, the fact that the seizures are going up is a sign of the failure of the policy, not a sign of the success.
Well, I think we need to pay more overtime and put more men working overtime to solve this.
Well, I need help being more responsible. I eat chocolate brownies for breakfast, then I have ice cream for lunch, and then I have a piece of pie for dinner, and then when I go to bed at night, I usually have a half a bag of Hershey chocolate. And so I have no ability to save myself from sugar, so maybe we can have a police officer just move into my kitchen.
Yeah, well, now, and because of that diet, now when I look at you on the Skype video, I have to use widescreen.
A serious note, this article that I ran across is called Marijuana Farms and Forests, a Growing Problem. And the article, interestingly, it came out on Monday of this week, August the 26th, 2 days ago. And it appears in a publication called Officer.com. So apparently this is a publication by an organization for police officers, and that's where I'm getting this information about the 67,000 marijuana plants found in just this one national forest in Wisconsin. And then it's kind of funny. The next line says, and the same police officers are aware of 75,000 plants that the growers harvested before they came upon it. So 75,000 plants got away, and a little bit less than that was captured. But the same article is talking about large-scale marijuana cultivation going on in 68 national forests in 20 states across the country. I mean, how long does this have to go on before somebody wakes up and says, this policy is not working?
It's interesting. I always tell people that the earth was never flat, even when everybody thought it was. And it's the same thing with this policy. This policy has never been a good idea, even when the majority of people thought it was. It still wasn't a good idea because, as you said earlier, Jim, when you prohibit consensual adult behavior, all you do is create crime. And if there's money connected to that behavior, you create violence, because if there's a dispute over the money, these people do not have the choice to go to the civil court system to settle the dispute. They take it to the streets. This is not, again, and I can't say this often enough, this is not pro-drug. This is pro-sensible policy. And you're hearing at it from people that lead.
Control and regulate them. What do you say?
Absolutely. Control, regulate. That's it. That's the only choices we got.
I can jump back to hemp for a minute because it's time for hemp. This other article I ran across was talking about Vermont. It says Vermont has pushed harder than any other state to get the hemp prohibition ended, and they have now done that in their own state. But it also says in here there's an organization called the Hemp Industries Association, HIA. And they estimated that the retail value of the North American hemp food, vitamin, and body care products was in the range of $121 to $142 million in 2010. Well, if hemp is illegal in the United States, as it is, then how could they be saying that that much money was involved in producing products? I mean, they're talking about North America. Is that possible?
they're certainly not looking at anybody's tax returns to get that number. It's
and they but I mean it seems like they're saying it actually is what's happening. So I mean, are there hemp? Is there hemp used in some of these products somehow?
Yeah, you would think. It's interesting when you mentioned Vermont. I was up there the first week of June, and as I was arriving at the different presentations at the Rotary and Kiwanis clubs, people up there would come up to me and they'd say, "Hey, did you hear we just signed? The governor just signed a a decriminalization marijuana bill." And I would say to them, "Yeah, I want to congratulate you on that. We did that in New York State back in 1975. Give me a call in 35 years and let me know how it's working for you." And then I would say to them, "But I do want to compliment you on another law the governor just passed, because in Vermont, they legalized murder." Now, what I mean by that is the governor signed a bill that legalized physician-assisted suicide. And as an old prosecutor, that before that bill was signed, if a physician had assisted a patient in dying, that physician would have been charged with manslaughter, which would be a murder charge.
Yeah, Kevorkian.
Exactly. But what they decided in Vermont, and this goes right to the key of LEAP, they decided that if two consenting adults want to do something together, even if it is one of them dying and the other one helping them to do it, even if it's that, if it's between two consenting adults, it's just none of the government's business.
Well, thank you. And yes, that's true. And in answer to your question, Jim, there are so many things that our farmers could be doing. I don't know if you know that in Canada, the the government there, the parliament there, subsidizes hemp farming, also subsidizes the advertising globally of the Canadian hemp products. They are touting the new hemp car up in Canada, which is like old news for us. Henry Ford developed one back in 1930, whatever. And so they got BMW and Volkswagen are making auto bodies out of the hemp plastics. And quite honestly, they got hempcrete that we're making stronger concrete out of hemp over in Europe. And it's only American who's dragging, and in the process, it's because they follow the money. The petrochemical companies are just terrified of competing with hemp. So, absolutely.
Casper, and then at the moment, Canada does permit and does allow the use of hemp in various products.
Oh my gosh, yes. They have acre after acre after acre. They have hemp oils up there, hemp suntan lotion, and it's actual hemp, and the government grows it. Yes.
Association estimated that the retail value of North America hemp food, vitamin, and body. So they're talking about including Canada. So probably much, if not all, of the numbers they're giving of this 121 to 142 million in the year 2010 is because it's lawful in Canada. So
exactly. And we're down to the last couple of minutes. We want to give a shout out, but let me remind people that we've been doing this hemp conference every Friday on Time for Hemp, 2 hours uninterrupted, commercial free. And Jim, the very first conference we did on 2 hours was Global Industrial Hemp. And you can find that at timeforhemp.com at the top of the left-hand column. It's also attached to the press release that you find there. So, Jim, quick shout out, and then we'll let Peter do it.
Well, Jim Gierach from Chicago. Pleasure to be with you.
It has been a joy to have you back on the broadcast. Sorry to have taken so long to bring you back. Peter, again, thank you to all the amazing people that took Time for Hemp last Friday. Here's your chance to give a shout-out to the amazing organization that you helped to co-found.
Okay, well, first I want to thank Jim Gierach for being on and also tell him what a pleasure it is working for him, and keep your nose at a grindstool. We'll get this thing done with. Leap.cc, CopSayLegalizedDrugs.com. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. That means any donation made to us is tax deductible. None of our speakers are paid, but when they travel, we do cover expenses, and that does cost some money to do that. So, and remember, I try to end every show by saying this because I think it's so important. The only reason that bad things continue to happen is because good people stay silent.
And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Take
poison all our souls. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, time for help! Yeah. It's
Well, some people call it weed.
So I've been playing with the band for 2 years, and I still don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Well, David, you know, a wise man, a very wise man, he once called it the diggity dank. I tell you, friends, it don't matter what you call it, as long as you twist it and roll it and smoke it down. I tell you, my friends, it don't matter what it looks like, as long as it ain't got no seeds and very little stems. We like the green that come up from the ground. We smoke it, pass it all around. We got a lot of friends in our bed, and tonight we raise it right. We smoke it light, we light it up, we puff it down underground. Foot and a half below the water table, pump it around. 24/7 to 20 to 24, 4 to the 7, 4 to the 20, the puff and the green. We take the dank, we put it in the paper and roll it around. We pass it, smoke it, the blueberry, smoke it, the blueberry down. Smoke it, the blue, smoke it, the blue, smoke it, the blue, the blue, the blue, the smoke, the blue. The blue, the blue, the blue, the blue.